We currently find ourselves in the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks are a 3-week period in which we mark the loss of the temple in Jerusalem. It begins on the 17th of Tammuz, when the walls of Jerusalem fell, and it concludes on the 9th of Av, when the temple was destroyed. Now, because of this great loss and tragedy, we mark it with acts of mourning. We don't listen to music, we don't get married. And then during the final 9 days of this 3-week period, we take it up a notch. We don't eat any meat outside of Shabbos, among some other acts of mourning. And then, of course, it reaches a peak on the 9th of Av, the very day of destruction, which we don't eat, don't drink, we don't wear leather shoes, among some other acts of mourning. Now, the thing is like this. One way to commemorate the loss of the temples is to focus on the acts of mourning. That the more acts of mourning I do, or the sadder I feel, the better. But then there's a bit of a different approach. The Lubavitcher Rebbe teaches us that the proper way to mourn the loss of the 2 temples is by making sure that we are working as hard as we can to bring about the building of the 3rd temple. So he encouraged us to study the laws of the 3rd temple because there is no exile that has no purpose. The only reason the temples were destroyed is because there's a greater one that can and will be built. So when we are here commemorating the loss of the temples, instead of focusing on the acts of mourning, we have to be focused on building the 3rd temple. And by default, we will no longer need to mourn for the 1st and 2nd temple. Now this, of course, is also a great lesson to us in our personal lives. If, heaven forbid, we experience a destruction, instead of focusing on how great the destruction was and on the acts of mourning, what we need to do is, I know that this is here for a purpose and for a reason. What can I do to bring about to this a personal redemption? What can I do to make a building of the 3rd temple on a personal level, so to speak, and get to work at it? In fact, our sages teach us that on the 9th of Av, the very day of the destruction of the temple, is the day Mashiach was born. Because whether on a personal or communal level, there is no such thing as a challenge or an exile that isn't there for a purpose, that wasn't preempted by a redemption and by a solution. And the only reason the exile or the challenge exists is to bring us to that redemption, to that success. So let's get working at it. Like this, we can enjoy the building of the 3rd temple even before the 9th of Av, this coming week, and we will no longer mourn the loss of the first 2 temples, but rather celebrate the building of the 3rd. Remember, you matter, so make a difference.